The fluorescent lights of Palmer and Associates buzzed overhead as Maya Rodriguez clutched her clipboard against her chest, her knuckles white with tension. She was the only Latina receptionist in the downtown Chicago law firm, and after 6 months, she still felt the weight of being different every single day. Rodriguez. The voice cut through the quiet morning like a knife. Maya's stomach dropped. It was Victoria Palmer, the CEO's daughter and the firm's youngest partner at 32. Victoria swept into the lobby, her Louboutin heels clicking against the marble floor with military precision. Yes, Ms. Palmer? Maya kept her voice steady, professional. Victoria's eyes narrowed as she approached the reception desk. The conference room. Now. Maya's heart hammered as she followed Victoria down the hallway. Other employees glanced up from their cubicles, then quickly looked away. Everyone knew what these private meetings meant. Inside the glass-walled conference room, Victoria turned on her. The Jameson files. Where are they? I gave them to Mr. Patterson yesterday afternoon, as you requested. Don't lie to me. Victoria's voice was ice. Because of your incompetence, I looked like a fool in front of our biggest client this morning. Ms. Palmer, I swear I delivered. Enough. Victoria slammed her hand on the table. Maya flinched. This is the 3rd mistake this month. One more, Rodriguez, and you're done. Do you understand? Maya nodded, her throat tight. She wanted to defend herself, to explain that Patterson had taken the files home, but Victoria's expression made it clear, the truth didn't matter. As Maya turned to leave, Victoria added one more thing. And Rodriguez? Fix your posture. You're representing this firm, not some taco truck. The words landed like a physical blow. Maya's hands trembled as she walked back to her desk, fighting tears. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Her mother's chemotherapy treatments depended on her insurance. Her younger brother's college tuition came from her paychecks. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of humiliation. During the lunch hour, Maya retreated to the building's underground parking garage, the one place she could cry without witnesses. She leaned against the cold concrete wall, shoulders shaking. Are you all right, miss? Mia jumped, quickly wiping her eyes. An older man stood near a modest sedan, concern etched on his weathered face. He wore a simple gray suit that had seen better days, and carried a worn leather briefcase. I'm fine, Maya lied, her voice cracking. The man didn't move. I've been coming to this building for 30 years. I know that kind of crying. Someone in there treating you badly? Something in his gentle tone broke through Maya's defenses. The words tumbled out, the constant criticism, the impossible standards, the casual cruelty disguised as professionalism. She told him about Victoria's latest attack, about the racial comments that left marks invisible to everyone else. Please, Maya whispered, just please stop treating me like I'm nothing. That's all I want to say to her. But I can't. I need this job. The man listened without interrupting. When she finished, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. I'm Henry Chen. I'm going to help you, if you'll let me. Maya looked at the card and gasped. Chen Industries. The name was legendary in Chicago business circles, a manufacturing empire worth hundreds of millions. This unassuming man in the outdated suit was Henry Chen, the self-made millionaire whose story was required reading in business schools. Why would you help me? Maya asked, stunned. Henry's eyes crinkled with a sad smile. Because 40 years ago, I was you. And nobody helped me. Over the next 2 weeks, something strange began happening at Palmer and Associates. Henry Chen, whose manufacturing contracts represented 20% of the firm's annual revenue, started making unusual requests. He wanted to personally review every document. He insisted on meeting in the lobby. And he asked specifically for Maya to coordinate all his appointments. Victoria was livious but powerless to refuse. Chen Industries was their biggest client. Maya watched as Henry conducted his quiet investigation. He observed Victoria's treatment of the support staff. He noted which attorneys took credit for their assistants' work. He documented everything with the meticulous precision of someone who'd built an empire from nothing. Then came the Friday afternoon meeting that would change everything. Henry called an emergency session with the firm's senior partners. Victoria, assuming it was about expanding their contract, arranged the conference room with champagne on ice. She preened as she entered, ready to celebrate her biggest deal, yet Henry sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. I'm terminating our contract with Palmer and Associates, effective immediately. The room erupted. Victoria's father, Gerald Palmer, went pale. Mr. Chen, if this is about pricing, we can negotiate. This isn't about money, Henry said quietly. It's about character. He pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were detailed notes, testimony from other employees, even security footage from the parking garage that Henry had requested weeks ago. Everything documented Victoria's pattern of abuse, not just toward Maya, but toward anyone she considered beneath her. Your daughter, Henry continued, looking directly at Gerald, has created a toxic environment that violates multiple employment laws. More importantly, she's forgotten a fundamental truth: nobody succeeds alone. The receptionist, the janitor, the assistant, they're as essential as any partner in this firm. Victoria's face flushed red. This is because of that girl? That incompetent, that girl is the most organized person in your organization, Henry cut her off. I've watched her handle 3 times the workload of anyone here while being subjected to constant harassment. She's never complained to HR, never fought back, because she was afraid. And that should shame every person in this room. The silence was deafening. Henry stood. I've already transferred our account to Morrison & Webb. But I'm doing something else too. Maya Rodriguez, if you're willing, I'm offering you a position at Chen Industries. Executive assistant to the CEO, me. Better pay, full benefits, and a work environment where your abilities matter more than your last name or the color of your skin. Maya, who'd been called in as a witness, couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were different tears. Mr. Chen, she finally managed, yes. Thank you. The fallout was swift. Palmer and Associates lost not just Chen Industries, but 3 other major clients who heard about the scandal. Victoria was quietly removed from her partnership. Gerald Palmer personally apologized to Maya and implemented sweeping changes to the firm's culture, but Maya barely noticed. She was too busy learning everything she could in her new role at Chen Industries, where Henry Chen mentored her with the same patience and respect he showed everyone. 6 months later, as Maya signed the paperwork for her mother's fully paid medical treatment, courtesy of her new salary and benefits, Henry stopped by her office. You know why I really hired you? He asked. Maya shook her head. Because 40 years ago, I was a young immigrant working in a factory. My supervisor would kick me when he walked by, literally kick me, just to remind me of my place. Nobody helped. Nobody spoke up. I promised myself that if I ever had power, I'd use it to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. He placed a hand on her shoulder. You reminded me of that promise. But more than that, you showed me something I'd forgotten, that dignity isn't given by others. It's something you carry inside, even when the world tries to take it away. Maya thought about the woman in the parking garage who'd been too afraid to speak. She thought about the woman she was becoming, stronger, braver, but never forgetting where she came from. I won't forget this, she said. Any of it. Henry smiled. Good. Because someday, you'll be in my position. And when that day comes, I hope you'll remember a crying receptionist in a parking garage, and you'll choose to help. Maya nodded, understanding the weight of what he was really saying. Kindness isn't just about one moment of rescue. It's about building a legacy of compassion that extends beyond yourself. As the Chicago skyline glowed golden in the sunset outside her window, Maya made herself a promise. She would work hard, rise high, and when her moment came, she would be the millionaire who acted. In a world that often judges people by their titles and treats workers as disposable, true leadership is measured not by power, but by compassion. Success built on the backs of humiliated employees is no success at all. And those who climb the ladder by stepping on others will eventually find themselves standing alone, but for those who remember their struggles and use their influence to lift others up, success becomes something far greater, a legacy of human dignity that transforms not just lives, but entire communities. As Henry Chen proved, the measure of wealth isn't counted in dollars, but in the number of lives you touch with kindness when nobody is watching. Maya Rodriguez stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, watching storm clouds gather over Lake Michigan. At 29, she was now the director of operations at Chen Industries, overseeing 3 departments and managing a team of 47 people. The journey from that broken woman in the parking garage seemed like a lifetime ago. Her phone buzzed. A text from Henry. Board meeting moved up to 2 p.m. Big announcement. Be there. Maya's stomach tightened. Henry had been hinting at changes for weeks, but he'd been cryptic about the details. At 73, he was slowing down, spending more time with his grandchildren, talking about legacy and succession. She arrived at the boardroom early, as always. The other executives filtered in: Michael Zhang from finance, Patricia O'Connor from legal, David Okafor from sales. They all nodded respectfully to Maya. She'd earned their respect the hard way, proving herself with every project, every decision, every crisis she'd navigated with grace under pressure. Henry entered last, and something in his expression made Maya's breath catch. This wasn't just another meeting. Thank you all for coming, Henry began, settling into his chair with the careful movements of someone whose body was beginning to betray him. I've made a decision about the future of this company. The room went silent. I'm stepping down as CEO, effective in 6 months. I'll remain as chairman of the board, but the day-to-day operations need younger, sharper minds. He paused, his eyes sweeping across the table. After considerable thought, I'm recommending Maya Rodriguez as my successor. The shock rippled through the room like an earthquake. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. Henry, she started, but he held up a hand. I know what you're going to say. You're young. You've only been here 3 years. There are people with more experience. His voice grew firm. But leadership isn't about years served. It's about character, vision, and the ability to see people as human beings, not resources. Maya has all of that. Patricia O'Connor cleared her throat. Henry, with all due respect, this is a multi-hundred-million-dollar operation. The board will have questions. The investors will have concerns. Let them, Henry said simply. I built this company from nothing. I get to decide who carries it forward. After the meeting, Maya followed Henry to his office, her mind reeling. I can't do this, she said the moment the door closed. Henry, I'm not ready. Nobody's ever ready. He gestured to a chair. Sit down. Let me tell you a story. Maya sat, her hands trembling. When I was 30, Henry began. I had just started this company with 3 employees and a dream. I landed a meeting with Walter Grantham, you won't know the name, but he owned half the real estate in Chicago back then. Biggest potential client I could imagine. He leaned back, his eyes distant with memory. I sat in his office, barely able to afford the suit I was wearing, and pitched my heart out. You know what he said to me? Maya shook her head. He said, boy, go back to whatever factory line you crawled off of. Men like you don't become men like me. Then he had security escort me out. Henry's voice was matter of fact, but Maya could hear the old pain underneath. I went home and cried. Just like you cried in that parking garage. What changed? Maya asked softly. I realized something. The Walter Granthams of the world will always exist. People who measure worth by birthright and privilege. But they don't get to define me. More importantly, they don't get to define what kind of leader I become. He leaned forward. You have a choice now, Maya. You can let your fear and self-doubt win, or you can become the leader you needed when you were at Palmer and Associates. Maya's throat tightened. What if I fail? Then you fail. But you'll fail trying to do something meaningful. His expression softened. I'm not asking you to be me, Maya. I'm asking you to be you, but at scale. To take everything you learned from being underestimated and use it to build something better. The transition was brutal. Maya worked 16-hour days, learning every aspect of the business from supply chain logistics to international contracts. Henry was patient but demanding, pushing her to think like a CEO, not a middle manager. Then came the crisis. IT started with a phone call on a Tuesday morning. Marcus Webb, Chen Industries' largest supplier, was on the line, and he sounded smug. Ms. Rodriguez, I'm calling to inform you that we're raising our prices by 35%, effective immediately. Maya's hand tightened on the phone. Marcus, we have a contract, which expires in 2 weeks. Read the fine print. We're within our rights. He paused. Of course, if Henry wants to negotiate personally, I might be willing to discuss more favorable terms. The message was clear. Marcus didn't believe Maya could handle this. He wanted to deal with the real boss. After hanging up, Maya stared at the spreadsheets on her screen. A 35% increase would devastate their margins. They'd have to lay off workers, cut benefits, maybe even close their Phoenix facility. Hundreds of families would suffer. She could ask Henry to step in. He'd handle it. He'd probably have Marcus eating out of his hand within an hour. But that would prove Marcus right. It would prove everyone right who said she wasn't ready. Maya took a deep breath and made a decision. She spent the next 3 days barely sleeping, researching every supplier in the region, running numbers, making calls. She discovered that Marcus's company was struggling. 2 major clients had left him in the past year. He was desperate, trying to recoup losses by squeezing Chen Industries. She also found something else, a smaller supplier in Detroit, woman-owned, with excellent quality ratings and hungry for growth. Their prices were competitive, their timeline aggressive but manageable. On Friday, Maya scheduled a video call with Marcus. She dressed carefully, a crisp suit, her hair pulled back, every inch the CEO she was about to become. Mr. Webb, she began, her voice steady. I've reviewed your proposal. I'm declining. Marcus laughed, a condescending sound that made her skin crawl. Ms. Rodriguez, you don't have a choice. Where else are you going to find Morrison Manufacturing in Detroit? I've already negotiated a 3-year contract with them, 20% below your current rates, better quality guarantees, and faster delivery times. She paused. The paperwork is being finalized today. The smugness drained from Marcus's face. You're bluffing. I'm not. And Marcus? You just taught me an important lesson about loyalty and respect. Chen Industries won't forget it. She ended the call, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. Then she walked to Henry's office. He looked up from his desk, seeing something in her expression. What happened? Maya told him everything, the threat, her solution, the new contract. When she finished, she braced for criticism. Maybe she'd been too rash, too aggressive, risked too much. Instead, Henry smiled, broader than she'd ever seen. Now you're ready. The announcement hit the business world like a thunderclap. Maya Rodriguez, at 29, was now the youngest CEO of a major manufacturing company in the United States. The media coverage was intense. Some celebrated her as a symbol of immigrant success and female empowerment. Others questioned whether she was qualified, suggesting she was just a token hire. Maya ignored both extremes and focused on the work. Her first major initiative was controversial. She raised the company's minimum wage to $22 an hour, added mental health benefits, and created a childcare program for employees. The board pushed back, worried about profits. We'll make it work, Mia said firmly. Our people aren't expenses to be minimized. They're investments to be valued. She also implemented something she called the open door protocol. Any employee, from janitor to executive, could schedule a 30-minute meeting with her each month. No gatekeepers, no barriers. The first person to sign up was a young warehouse worker named James Park, arrived at her office visibly nervous, clutching a folder to his chest. "Ms. Rodriguez, I'm sorry to bother you, you're not bothering me, James. Sit down. What's on your mind?" The story spilled out. James's supervisor, Derek Hansen, was running a scheme, falsifying inventory reports, skimming products, and bullying anyone who questioned him. James had tried reporting it through proper channels, but Hansen was friends with the warehouse manager. Nothing had been done. "I thought about quitting," James said quietly. "But I've got student loans, and my little sister depends on my help. I can't afford to lose this job." Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. This was her Victoria Palmer moment, the test of whether she meant what she'd said about creating a better culture. "Thank you for trusting me with this," she said. "I'm going to look into it personally." "And James?" "No retaliation. You have my word." The investigation took 2 weeks. Maya brought in an external auditor, interviewed workers confidentially, and reviewed security footage. The evidence was damning. Hansen had stolen nearly $500,000 worth of products over 3 years, covering his tracks with elaborate fraud. The day Maya fired Derek Hansen, he sneered at her. "You'll regret this. You're just some diversity hire who got lucky. You don't know how the real world works." Maya met his eyes steadily. "You're wrong. I know exactly how the real world works. I've lived on the receiving end of people like you my entire life. The difference is, now I have the power to make sure people like you don't get to hurt anyone else." Security escorted him out. That afternoon, Maya called an all-hands meeting at the warehouse. Over 200 workers gathered, confused and apprehensive. "I know there have been questions about leadership changes," Maya began. "About whether I understand what you do, whether I care about the people who make this company run." She paused. "The truth is, 3 years ago, I was you. I was the person nobody listened to, the employee everyone overlooked. Someone saved me when I had nowhere else to turn. Now it's my turn to save others." She told them about the investigation, about James's courage, about the changes she was implementing to prevent future abuse. She announced that James Park would be promoted to warehouse supervisor, and that she was creating an independent ethics hotline. "This company isn't just about profit," she continued. "It's about proving that you can be successful while treating people with dignity. Anyone who doesn't believe that doesn't belong here." The applause started slowly, then built to a roar. The numbers told a remarkable story. Despite the increased labor costs, Chen Industries' productivity was up 18%. Employee turnover had dropped by 40%. Customer satisfaction scores had reached all-time highs. The workers who felt valued worked harder, smarter, and more loyally. Wall Street analysts were forced to revise their skeptical predictions, but Maya's biggest challenge came from an unexpected source. Palmer and Associates, the law firm that had nearly destroyed her, was facing bankruptcy. Victoria Palmer, humiliated and vindictive, had started a competing firm that was hemorrhaging money. In a desperate move, Gerald Palmer reached out to Maya personally, asking Chen Industries to throw them a lifeline with a major legal contract. Maya sat in her office, staring at Gerald's email, feeling the weight of the decision. Part of her wanted to refuse, to let them suffer the way she'd suffered. Justice had a certain appeal. She called Henry. "What would you do?" she asked. There was a long pause. "I'd ask myself, what kind of leader do I want to be? One who repays cruelty with cruelty? Or one who breaks the cycle?" Maya closed her eyes. "I hate that you're right." She called Gerald Palmer and offered a deal. Chen Industries would sign a modest contract with his firm, but with conditions. Palmer and Associates had to implement comprehensive anti-discrimination training, create an independent HR oversight committee, and establish a fund for legal services for low-income workers, managed by Maya's nominees. "Turn your failure into redemption," Maya told him. "Become the firm you should have been all along." Gerald Palmer accepted, his voice thick with emotion. The invitation arrived on heavy cream cardstock. "The Chicago Business Alliance requests the honor of your presence at the annual Leadership Excellence Awards. This year's Humanitarian Award, Maya Rodriguez, CEO, Chen Industries." Maya stood on the stage in the ballroom of the Drake Hotel, looking out at hundreds of faces, business leaders, politicians, activists. She spotted Henry in the front row, his eyes shining with pride. "When I accepted this award," Maya began, "I thought about refusing it. Because everything I've accomplished started with someone else's compassion. Henry Chen saw a broken woman in a parking garage and decided she was worth saving. He taught me that power without compassion is just cruelty with better marketing." The audience laughed softly. "But then I realized, accepting this award isn't about me. It's about everyone I represent. Every worker who's been kicked when they're down. Every immigrant told to go back where they came from. Every young person told they'll never amount to anything." Her voice strengthened. "This award is proof that they're wrong." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I want to announce something tonight. Chen Industries is establishing a $50 million fund called the Second Chance Initiative. It will provide scholarships, job training, and small business loans to people from disadvantaged backgrounds. Because the next great leader is out there right now, maybe they're cleaning offices, maybe they're waiting tables, maybe they're one cruel boss away from giving up. They just need someone to believe in them. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, as the crowd mingled, a young woman approached Maya hesitantly. She was maybe 22, wearing a server's uniform with the hotel's logo. "Ms. Rodriguez," the young woman said softly. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I just wanted to say thank you. I heard your speech, and I'm studying business at community college. Everyone tells me I'm crazy, that girls like me don't become executives. But hearing you tonight." Her eyes welled with tears. "It makes me think maybe they're wrong." Maya felt her own eyes sting. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "What's your name?" "Destiny. Destiny Washington." "Destiny, I want you to email me your resume and your story. I can't promise anything, but Chen Industries has an internship program. If you're willing to work hard, we're willing to give you a chance." Destiny's hands trembled as she took the card. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't." Maya smiled. Because 4 years ago, someone said the exact same thing to me. Chen Industries had doubled in size. Maya had expanded into sustainable manufacturing, making the company a leader in green technology. She'd been featured in Forbes, Fortune, and Time magazine. Headhunters called weekly, offering positions at bigger companies, higher salaries, more prestige. She turned them all down. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, Maya visited Henry at his home. He was 80 now, moving slowly but still sharp as ever. They sat on his back porch, drinking tea and watching the sunset. "I've been thinking about retirement," Maya admitted. Henry raised an eyebrow. "You're 34 years old. Not permanent retirement. But stepping back, letting new leadership rise. Isn't that what you did?" "Ah." Henry smiled. "You found your successor." Maya nodded. "Destiny Washington. She started as an intern 5 years ago. Now she's VP of Strategic Initiatives. She's brilliant, compassionate, and she understands what it means to fight for every opportunity." "Then you've learned the most important lesson," Henry said softly. "True leadership isn't about holding on to power. It's about creating more leaders." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "Do you ever regret it?" Maya asked suddenly. "Taking a chance on me? I was such a risk, no business degree, no management experience, just a receptionist with a crying problem." Henry turned to look at her, his expression serious. "Maya, you weren't a risk. You were a certainty. I knew exactly what you'd become, because I knew what you'd survived. The people who've been broken and rebuilt themselves are always the strongest leaders. They understand that power is a responsibility, not a privilege." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I hope I've made you proud." "Proud?" Henry's voice cracked slightly. "Maya, you've exceeded every dream I had. But more than that, you've created a ripple effect I could never have achieved alone. Every person you've helped, every worker you've protected, every young person you've mentored, that's your legacy. That's what matters." Maya Rodriguez stood once again in a parking garage, but this time she was the one offering help. She'd spotted the young man crying in the stairwell, a new hire in Chen Industries' accounting department, clearly overwhelmed. Maya sat down on the concrete steps beside him, not bothering with CEO formality. "Rough day?" she asked gently. The young man, his name badge said Marcus Chen, and Maya felt a jolt of recognition at the last name, wiped his eyes quickly. "I'm sorry, Ms. Rodriguez. I didn't mean to." "It's okay. I've cried in a parking garage before. Sometimes it's the only place that makes sense." Marcus looked at her in surprise. "You? But you're the CEO." "I wasn't always." Maya smiled. 10 years ago, I was a receptionist at a law firm. My boss was cruel, I was broke, and I thought my life would never get better. Then someone helped me. Someone who didn't have to, but chose to anyway." She could see the hope dawning in Marcus's eyes. "What's going on?" she asked. The story tumbled out: family pressure, imposter syndrome, a mistake on a recent project that he was terrified would get him fired. Maya listened with the patience that Henry had once shown her. When Marcus finished, Maya said, "Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow, you're going to come to my office. We're going to review your project together, fix the mistake, and turn it into a learning opportunity. Then we're going to talk about what support you need to succeed here." "But why would you?" "Because someone did it for me," Maya said simply. "And now it's my turn to pass it forward." She stood, offering Marcus her hand to help him up. As they walked back toward the building, Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here. From that terrified woman in Palmer and Associates, to this moment of being someone else's salvation, the cycle had come full circle, but it hadn't ended. It had multiplied, because that's what compassion does. It doesn't just save one person. It creates a cascade of salvation that extends infinitely forward, touching lives that you'll never know, changing futures that you'll never see. Maya looked up at the Chen Industries building, its windows glowing gold in the setting sun, and silently thanked the universe for parking garages and millionaires who choose to act. the documentary filmmaker adjusted her camera as Maya Rodriguez, now 54, retired from Chen Industries but busier than ever with her non-profit work, settled into her chair. So, Ms. Rodriguez, the filmmaker began, people call you the guardian angel of corporate America. You've helped thousands of workers, changed dozens of companies, inspired a generation of ethical leaders. What drives you? Maya thought for a moment, her mind drifting back through decades of memories. A parking garage. A kind stranger. A woman who'd been kicked down but refused to stay down. I remember exactly what it feels like to be powerless, she said finally. To be treated as less than human. And I remember exactly what it felt like when someone saw me as worthy of saving. That feeling, that moment of being truly seen, that's what I try to give to others. And Henry Chen? He passed away last year. What was his legacy to you? Maya's eyes grew distant. Henry taught me that wealth isn't measured in money. It's measured in the number of lives you lift up when no one is watching. He also taught me that the most revolutionary act in business isn't innovation or disruption, it's treating people with dignity. She leaned forward, her voice passionate. Every person who's been crushed by a cruel boss, every worker who's been told they don't matter, every young person who's been denied opportunity, they're not just employees or statistics. They're future leaders, waiting for someone to believe in them. The filmmaker smiled. And that's what you've dedicated your life to? Finding those future leaders? Not just finding them, Maya corrected. Creating the conditions where they can find themselves. Because the greatest leaders aren't born, they're forged in the fire of adversity and tempered by the kindness of those who refuse to let them break. She paused, a soft smile playing at her lips. Somewhere out there right now, there's a person crying in a parking garage, thinking their life will never get better. My job is to make sure that when they look up, someone is standing there with an outstretched hand. And what do you want people to remember about your story? Maya considered the question carefully. I want them to remember that change doesn't start with policy or profit margins. It starts with one person choosing compassion over cruelty. One person deciding that another human being is worth saving. That simple choice, made over and over again, that's what transforms the world. The camera kept rolling as Maya stared out the window, her expression peaceful. She'd spent 30 years proving that success and kindness weren't mutually exclusive. That you could be powerful without being cruel. That the measure of a leader wasn't how high they climbed, but how many people they lifted along the way. Somewhere in downtown Chicago, in a high-rise office, Destiny Washington, now CEO of Chen Industries, was having lunch with a nervous young intern, offering encouragement and guidance. The cycle continued, the legacy lived on, and in parking garages across America, angels still appeared when people needed them most. True power isn't about dominance or control. It's about creating more power in others. The greatest leaders don't build empires, they build leaders. And the most enduring legacy isn't written in profit margins or press releases, but in the quiet moments when someone chooses compassion, when someone extends a hand, when someone says to another hurting soul, I see you. You matter. And I'm going to help you rise. That's the only power that truly lasts, the only wealth that truly matters, and that's the only success story worth telling.